stage and ask you to welcome the first of our acts tonight. I got to hear a little bit of his sound check, and I can tell you you're in for a treat. And the other thing is, he's just a really, really nice guy. You know, we get nice people to perform on our stage. For over 35 years, Reggie Harris has been a musician, an educator, and a storyteller. He sings African-American spirituals and blues, and he's just a gentle soul who will entertain and inspire you. And I hope you'll put your hands together and give a warm festival welcome to Reggie Harris.
Just an ordinary day. No reason for a fuss. And even though it isn't Christmas, let us love one another. Let us love. Just a day, no special name, no pretty presents to exchange. Oh, let's make it a good day, just the same. Let us love one another, let us love. No special greeting for today. No happy Easter, no Merry Christmas, no only how are you today? Let's make it a good day. Oh, anyway, let us love one another, let us love. We start by singing, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Well, now, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, sing and say, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Good evening. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure being here in this beautiful green. This is a song that I wrote in 2016, inspired by Abraham Lincoln. In his inaugural address, he said that we needed to look to our better angels. Not bad advice. Here we stand in the middle of a great divide. It's time to deliver, but we're taking sides. And those who might lead us have too much to hide, so the world is on fire again. There was a man who once told us of a way we could be in a time of great sorrow when hatred ran free. If our better angels could guide us, said he, think of what good might be done. If we would stand up, we'll get through the night. We'll find some answers, we'll make it right. Oh, justice will flow down, freedom will ring. Think of the good it will bring when we let our angels sing. Angels sing. There are voices that cry out from deep in the soul. Been there forever, they never grow old. They're hopeful and quiet, but we'll never hear them speak when we're shattered by fear. So let's stand in the middle, but what can we say? Let's start with compassion and keep it in play. Think it all over and we'll find a way to do what we know must be done. We got to stand up to get through the night. We'll find some answers, we'll make it right. Oh, justice will flow down, freedom will ring. Think of the good it will bring when we let our angels sing. Now we can spend our time just fussing about the politics. Keep our heads in the sand. We don't see the signs, but the future's on the line. We gotta work as fast as we can. We got to stand up to get through the night. We'll find some answers, we'll make it right. Justice will flow down, freedom will ring. Think of the good it will bring. If we could stand up to get through the night, we'll find some answers, we'll make it right. Justice will flow down, freedom will ring. Think of the good it will bring when we let our angels sing. Oh, we got to stand up. Hey, hey, we got to stand up. Hey, hey, we got to stand up and let our angels sing. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's such a wonderful thing to be here today. I had an amazing drive. I live over on the other side of the lake in New York State, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. well, thank you very much. Philadelphia doesn't get quite as many hands these days. I grew up there. We called it the city of brotherly love, and I don't hear that even talked about so very much. However, it was an amazing place to grow up. And then in a fit of something, about 32 years ago, I think it was inspiration, vision, and, I don't know, opportunity, that was it. I took a drive through, my wife and I, and we found a small little house in upstate New York in the town of Middleburg, and decided in about 20 minutes to move. Yeah, it was one of those days, we had been looking around and thinking about other places that we could live. Philadelphia was getting a little complicated, and as cities tend to do. And we settled in this little town, and I think, moving there, we increased the black population by 400%. So that was a little different, a little shake, but it has turned out to be a wonderful move. And it is what got me used to being in places like this. Yeah. Philadelphia was not like this. However, country living has taken, and now I go into cities and I'm like, oh my God, when can I get out? So it's really wonderful. I drove today, and as I drove, it's kind of what happens at home. Every single mile that I drove, the level of my anxiety reduced by some remarkable percentage. And the beauty just really settled into my heart and soul. And I got to thinking about somebody who's been a real icon for me, a man whose songs I first heard when I was in second grade. Anybody here go to second grade? Okay, yeah, well, When I was in second grade, my teacher, Miss Churn, came in one day. She was a lovely teacher. I found out years later that she was in her second year of teaching. And I know, she'd just gotten out of college. She had 1 year, then she got me. But there we were in our classroom, and she came in that afternoon. We got to go home for lunch. So I lived about 5 blocks from the school, Grover Cleveland Elementary School there in Philadelphia, in a nice town section. And went home, came back, and we're sitting in the room, and she came in, and I remember that she went up to the board, and she wrote a man's name on the board. It's almost as if it were yesterday, because the thing that really mattered was that she cemented this small little lesson with a song. And that song is a song that I'm sure most of you know. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. Oh, this land was made for you and me. How many of you remember that song? Ah, yes. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. Oh, this land was made for you and me. Sing it if you know it. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, redwood forests, oh, to the Gulf Stream waters. Oh, this land was made for you and me. The name that she put up on that board, of course, was Woody Guthrie. And I was driving today, remembering that today is the 110th anniversary of Woody Guthrie's birth. I know. But for that first lesson, Miss Churn came in and she sang with us. And in that time, of course, we as Americans sang more in those times. We sang together more, either in churches or community centers or in schools or wherever it was. We were more of a singing nation then. And that song, she was not a particularly good singer. I remember that. But that was not the important thing. She was a teacher stretching the boundaries of our vision. And there in Philadelphia, surrounded by concrete and very few trees, she introduced us to a man who traveled all around the nation and wrote about those places. He also wrote about the people that he met. Many times there were people whose lives really needed to be revealed, because their lives were hard. It was the first time in that song that I heard about redwood trees. And of course, years later, as I became a musician and began to travel and went out west, I'm in Oregon now and Northern California, and visiting redwood trees, remembering how Woody wrote about them, how he wrote about the dams, how he wrote about the Dust Bowl, how he chronicled the places in America. And I was so grateful to my teacher, Charlotte Churn. Now, I've been part of the Kennedy Center's Changing Education Through the Arts program for over 35 years. And so I know in a deep sense how the arts can really impact education. And so I've been very grateful over the years in sharing the story about Miss Churn. I had to tell people that 30 years on, I was traveling around, and now I'd been to most of those places that Woody wrote about. And I was so grateful to him for those stories and those songs, Roll On, Columbia, Roll On, and the other songs that he wrote. I was back in Philadelphia at one point. I was there to do a program for about 300 students from the Philadelphia Public Schools. And in the museum where I was, the students began to file in and fill in those seats. And I'm just kind of thinking about how, and when I was growing up, that's kind of what used to happen. That's how I first began to see performers standing up in front of an audience and get that spark that eventually turned me into a songwriter. But as I watched those kids that day come in and they filed in, there was one section that was left. And as that last group came in and started to take their seats, I was looking at their teacher, and suddenly I thought, wow, she looks familiar. Yeah, you're ahead of me. I looked at her, and almost 30 years on, she had not changed one iota. I could still recognize her. She was tall, she was thin, she had that round, joyful face, and she was shepherding those kids into that spot. And I thought to myself, wow, this is amazing. I'm gonna speak to her before I leave here today. And so it was. I did the show, and then I hurried off the stage, got to the back, but I didn't have to hurry because she was just standing there with about 3 or 4 of her students, and she had begun to give some instructions to them. So I quietly waited. And she looked up at one point, and she looked at me, but she smiled and then looked back at the kids. And then she discharged them into the rest of the auditorium. And she turned and looked at me, and I said, hello, are you Miss Churn? And she said, yes, I am. I'm Charlotte Churn. Now, that was new information because I didn't know her first name was Charlotte because we didn't think teachers had names, in that day. But there she was, and I said, oh, yes, well, Miss Churn, it's so good to see you. She says, have we met before? And I said, well, yeah. She said, are you related? She said, oh, you're the performer. You were just up on stage. I said, yeah. She said, well, thank you so much for that performance. My kids will get so much out of that, but you know me somehow. And I said, yeah. And she said, how? And I said, well, I should just tell you, but I had you for a teacher in 2nd grade. Now, of course, it was 30 years on, and I had a full head of gray hair, and she looked at me, and she said, you had me in 2nd grade? I said, mm-hmm. And the smile that she had on her face dimmed a little, and she just kind of looked at me, and she said that, so I was your teacher in 2nd grade? And I said, you were. And she kind of turned to the side, and I heard her say under her breath, I really must retire. But I said, we laughed and we talked about 30 years ago. I mentioned that she had shared that Woody Guthrie song, and of course she had absolutely no memory of having done that at all. So many kids, so many years, but we talked that day, and I thanked her for opening that window that really widened my world. I couldn't even tell her in that time that we talked that I had written a song about Woody Guthrie as a songwriter, because that actually wouldn't happen for another 5 years. But what I did tell her was that her work as a teacher had been amazing. She'd opened up a window for me, and probably for so many of those kids, that took us to places that we could never have dreamed of. And that's what Woody did too. You were born with the heart of a cowboy. Oh, Kima, the place you began. And right from the start, the road called to your heart, so you set off to discover the land. You hitched and you rode and you rambled with a passion that burned to be free. And you lifted the stories of all that you met from the Dust Bowl of humanity. So roll on, Woody, roll on. You taught us well by singing your song. And now we're here to carry it on. Roll on, Woody, roll on. Yes, roll on, Woody, roll on. You taught us well by singing your song. And now we're here to carry it on. Roll on, Woody, roll on. Roll on, Woody, roll on. From the farmers, the miners, the old and the young, to the refugee women and men, you made your name by exposing the games that kept good folks facing the wind. And in all of your years of hard traveling, well, you often said you had no choice. Your words made it clear. Don't you give in to fear, and speak out so they hear your voice. And roll on, Woody, roll on. You took a stand by singing your song. And now we're here to carry it on. Roll on, Woody, roll on. Yes, roll on, Woody, roll on. You took a stand by singing your song. And now we're here to carry it on. Roll on, Woody, roll on. Roll on, Woody, roll on. From the pastures of plenty to Columbia's shores, from the mountains right down to the sea, you said that this land was our land to have, and it's a land made for you and for me. Oh, but now, dear Woody, the tables are turned as the forces of hate try to win. Oh, but we're bound for glory. We're up to this fight, and we won't be denied in the end. So let's roll on, Woody, roll on. You gave us hope by singing your song, and singing your song. And now we're here to carry it on. Roll on, Woody, roll on. Roll on, Woody, roll on. Oh, yes, Woody, roll on. Josh, you want to take that monitor down just a wee bit in the guitar? Thanks. Well, I've been sitting here thinking about the world today. Oh, glory, hallelujah. Got a lot on my mind, but I'm blessed to say, glory, hallelujah, I'm ready to go. We're all living in a world turned upside down. Oh, glory, hallelujah. Gonna take some time to turn it around. Glory, hallelujah, I'm ready to go. Oh, mama, it's a long, long road. You got me singing with the seed you sowed. It's up to me, so come what may. Glory, hallelujah, it's a righteous day. Glory, hallelujah, I'm on my way. Ba-da-da-ba-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-ba-ba. We got a world of trouble and a world of pain. Oh, glory, hallelujah. They keep spinning the truth in freedom's name. Glory, hallelujah, I'm ready to go. When the haters pull up, I just sing my song. Oh, glory, hallelujah. Keeps my mind on track, keeps my spirit strong. Glory, hallelujah, I'm ready to go. Oh, mama, it's a long, long road. You got me singing with the seed you sowed. It's up to me, so come what may. Glory, hallelujah, it's a righteous day. Glory, hallelujah, I'm on my way. Oh, ba-da-da-ba-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-da-da-ba-da, da-ba-doo-ba, da-ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-da-ba-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-da-da-ba, da-ba-doo-ba, da-ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-ba-ba. Well, I know I can't do this all by myself. Oh, glory, hallelujah. It's a long, hard journey, gonna need some help. Glory, hallelujah, I'm ready to go. Well, I'm sitting here thinking about the world today. Oh, glory, hallelujah. Got friends by my side, and I'm blessed to say, glory, hallelujah, I'm ready to go. Oh, mama, it's a long, long road. You got me singing with the seed you sowed. It's up to me, so come what may. Glory, hallelujah, it's a righteous day. Glory, hallelujah, I'm on my way. Oh, 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 mama, it's a long, long road. You got me singing with the seed you sowed. It's up to me, so come what may. Glory, hallelujah, it's a righteous day. Glory, hallelujah, I'm on my way. And we're singing now, ba-da-da-ba-ba-da-da, ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-da-da-ba-da-da-ba-doo-ba, ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-da-ba-ba-da-da, ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-da-da-ba, da-da-da-ba-doo-ba, ba-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-ba-ba. Hold fast to dreams. For when dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. With billowing sails, the galleons came, bringing men and dreams and women and dreams. Heart to heart, hand to hand, together we began to build this land. Some were free hands, seeking greater freedom. Some were indentured hands, hoping to find their freedom. Some were slave hands, guarding in their hearts the seed of freedom. But one word was there always: freedom. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. That's a song from the Georgia Sea Islands. It's an area that is kind of mysterious. Georgia Sea Islands and the islands off of South Carolina, they call that the Low Country. I'm sure that some of you have been through that area, and it is a part of the United States that before our country was really a country, that was a very vibrant, incredibly productive area where people were in slavery they were growing rice. And it was in those areas, the rice plantations, that actually, even in the and early 1700s, were making millions and millions and millions of dollars. I found it so amazing that I read the book Slaves in the Family. I was interested partly because my family did start in slavery, and I'll talk about that just in a minute. We were in Virginia, so we weren't part of the Low Country, but the folks there were working in a climate that was so troublesome, and it took very special skills. So actually the folks who started those plantations in South Carolina and then through Georgia actually went to Africa, to places where they found people who already knew how to grow rice, and brought them over to teach them how to do it. And then, of course, it became a very powerfully productive crop well into the 1700s, when, of course, later, then in the 1800s, when the cotton gin was invented and the things turned around. But that song, Sheep, Sheep, Don't You Know the Road, is one that comes from the Georgia Sea Islands, and a woman named Bessie Jones was the first voice that I heard singing it. And I will tell you, on the day that I heard it, I was driving on the highway on my way to a concert, and I damn near drove off the road. Her voice, so expressive. I certainly would recommend that when you have an opportunity to look up Bessie Jones and just type in Sheep, Sheep. She was sitting in a church there in Georgia, surrounded by some of her fellow neighbors, and they were just singing. Alan Lomax, the amazing musicologist, toured all over the South and recorded black and white folks who were singing songs that had been part of their culture and their families. Some of those songs crossed over. They heard each other, they sang each other's songs. Out of that really came the spirituals as they rose up, and then, of course, the blues, and then, of course, bluegrass, all of those forms informing each other. But the reason that I almost drove off the road that day was because Bessie's voice contained in it the same kind of voices that I heard growing up in Philadelphia. My mother, Helen Harris, was just powerfully dedicated to getting my sister and I into the church, the Nazarene Baptist Church at Nice and Lycoming Street. That's how they taught us to say it in those days. They said, say the name of your church like you're proud of it, and tell people where it is in case they want to drop by. I will guarantee you that nobody ever dropped by the church because I told them where it was. I wanted to be home watching cartoons or something, but my mother had a drug problem. She drug us to church all the time. So it was on Sunday morning and Monday evening for choir rehearsal and Tuesday for God only knows what. We were in church so much, and at the front of the church on Sunday mornings, those old folks would come up and they would sing those old songs, and they took forever doing it. And we young people, we had stuff to do, so we wanted service to be over in a hurry, but they were in no hurry. We didn't know that was part of history. And now, of course, as I travel around the country and the world and I look in the mirror, I have to reevaluate just how old those old folks were. But the songs carried power. The spiritual, sorrow songs is what Frederick Douglass called them, but they're not just songs of sorrow. These are songs that connect with human beings all around the world because they really do take in the depth of human experience. And so it is, they sang their songs and call and response. The song leader, the griot, singing out and the people answering in whatever way they chose to answer, sometimes singing in whole phrases, sometimes because they were so exhausted and weary, they would just moan the lyrics. But the songs had power. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, don't you know the road by the singing of the song? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the singing of the song? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, don't you know the road by the praying of the prayer? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the praying of the prayer? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, yes, my Lord. I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, don't you know the road by the clapping of the hands? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the clapping of the hands? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, don't you know the road by the going on home? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the going on home? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, yes, my Lord. I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Lady, play upon your harp. Hallelujah. Well, I don't know, but I got told the streets of heaven are paved with gold. I'm gonna put on my glory shoes. I'm gonna walk down the mighty fine road. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah. Well, don't you know the road by the singing of the song? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the singing of the song? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Oh, yes, my Lord, I know that road. Now, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, yes, my Lord. I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Oh, yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, I say, yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, I say, yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, I say, yes, Lord, I know the road. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone near you and look at them, smile, and say, I can't wait to hear you sing. Sounds like we're off to a good start. Some years ago, a brochure came in the mail. I'd gotten home from about a month-long tour, and the recycling had piled up. So I was just going through all of the letters and the various ads and brochures and all kinds of things had piled up. And as I went through the catalogs, one thing popped out, and it wasn't a catalog. It was actually an announcement of a conference that was going to take place in New York City. It was run by the Omega Institute, where I used to go. It's a holistic health center. Yeah, I see some of you have been to Omega in Rhinebeck, New York. It's a wonderful place, a holistic health center, and they have all kinds of great workshops on all kinds of different topics. And I went there for 13 years in the midst of all kinds of holistic healing and health retreats. I went there to play basketball. You know, we all have our ways to connect with the Spirit, you know. Actually, it was a 13-year course that I took with Phil Jackson of Chicago Bulls and Laker fame. Phil coached there for 13 years, and all of us who had absolutely and totally no shot at making the NBA. But he taught us lots of things about ourselves through the medium of that great sport. At any rate, the conference was called In the Shelter of Each Other, and right on the front of the brochure was this beautiful Celtic knot. And the saying, which was under it, which was the name of the conference, was called In the Shelter of Each Other, and the phrase that went with it was, in the shelter of each other, the people live. It's a Gaelic saying, and I looked at that Celtic knot, I looked at that phrase, and I thought, there's got to be a song in there somewhere. So I leafed through the brochure, and lo and behold, it looked like an amazing conference, had all these incredible speakers that were coming. The one that caught my eye immediately was Maya Angelou. And she was coming to, that Saturday the Saturday of the conference. And then I looked at, and there were a number of others, Ram Dass and Sonia Sanchez and all of these amazing poets and philosophers. And then I got to the back of the brochure to where the pricing was, and I saw that it was not a folk singer price. So I thought, well, maybe they'll have it next year, and I'll save up my money. But I just thought I'm just going to hang on to that, and I carried around in my briefcase for about 2 weeks, and suddenly I began working on this song, and as luck would have it, a phone call came from somebody at Omega. Actually, it was one of the co-founders, Elizabeth Lesser. And she called and she said, Reggie, because I'd gone there a number of times, she says, we're having a conference. I don't know if you've heard. It's called In the Shelter of Each Other. And I said, yeah, I heard something about it, And she said, well, actually, the conference could really use some music, and I immediately thought of you. I thought maybe if you could write us a song, that would be really great. We'd have you come. And I said, and I could come for free? She said, oh, absolutely, absolutely. We'll put you up right there. And I said, well, I'll see what I can do. Well, I started working immediately on the song, and as I got through, I had a couple of verses, I had a chorus, and time was getting close, and I went down to New York. I had most of the song written, but I still needed another verse, the second verse, and I was struggling. That night, I sat up until 3 in the morning because I was supposed to do the song just before Maya Angelou spoke. I know. So I'm working. I'm exhausted, but finally, I get the words in. And now I went to bed, got a couple hours sleep, and then I'm getting up. I'm thinking, okay, fine, here we go. I'm gonna go downstairs, and I have most of the song in my head, and I'm thinking, okay, I'll just keep repeating them. And I'm in the green room, and I'm going over the song. Things are going well. When suddenly I see the door to the green room open, and there's Elizabeth Lesser, the co-founder and one who asked me, and she comes in, and right behind her is Maya Angelou. And I look and I think, okay, all right. Now, Maya is going to be doing a speech, so I'm sure she's getting herself centered, and I'm not going to be that guy who had to meet Maya Angelou before her speech. I'll wait for another opportunity. But as Elizabeth came in, she saw me, and she just came over, glided right by me, and said, hi, Reggie, and she hugged me, and my guitar was there. And then I noticed that Miss Angelou was also coming toward me. And I thought, okay, don't be that guy. But she just walked right up to me, extended her hand, and said, good morning, darling, how are you? And with her touch and her voice, the entire song went out of my head. Well, my mother didn't raise stupid children, so I went over and I wrote the song out and I pasted it to my guitar. And that morning we sang this song, In the Shelter of Each Other, and I have an amazing memory of two things. One, of Maya Angelou standing right about there off stage, just as I started the song, and she sang every word of that song like she'd known it forever. Well, it helped that it's call and response. However, she stood right there smiling at me as I sang. And then she took the stage and she said, they tell me I have 1 hour and 10 minutes to speak to you today. I told them I damn well may speak all day. And then she delivered an 1.5-hour speech of amazing impact, no notes, brilliant as the day is long. But this song remains. So, I'm going to ask you to sing this with me. Don't look to your right or left. You'll just intimidate those sitting next to you. We're going to raise the roof on this. You can sing back to me what I sing to you. In the shelter. We'll try that again. Take a nice deep breath. Yeah. In the shelter of each other. In the shelter of our lives. We are open. We are dreaming. We are hopeful. We are wise. Ah, yeah. Sounds great. Let's try it again. In the shelter of each other. In the shelter of our lives. We are open. We are dreaming. We are hopeful. We are wise. times the weight of the world crashes in, we feel angry and afraid. We start lose our sense of hope, our sense of direction. The isolation we have learned will not bring much in return if we truly cannot learn to live as one. Here we go. Right in the shelter of each other, in the shelter of our lives, we are hoping, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise. You know that many times the pain of the world crashes in. We feel broken and betrayed. We start to lose our sense of joy, our sense of connection. Though our history remains, well, it's our actions we must change if we hope to heal our planet. You know that we must stand right in the shelter of each other, in the shelter of our lives. Yeah, we are open, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise. Yeah. Oh, let's go. Right in the shelter of each other, right in the shelter of our lives. We are open, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise. Yeah, we are open, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise, we are wise, we are wise. We are wise. Well, in 2020, I got an email from a cousin of mine, 27-year-old cousin who I had actually just met some few years before. And Clayton emailed me and he said, Reggie, you're not going to believe this, but I just got an email from the New York Times and they want to talk to us. And I thought, oh no. Why do they, and then I thought, oh, I know why they want to talk to us. Because at the time, as you might remember, things were a little volatile here in America. And in Richmond, where Clayton lives, things had sort of gotten to the point where every night there were thousands of people roaming the streets and gathering around these 60-foot-high statues. And Clayton and his brother Will had been in the streets every single night, and he would generally send me pictures of what was happening. And he and Will were all charged up because they were really energized about the changes that were taking place, not only in Richmond, but all over the place. Now, the reason that the New York Times had made contact with Clayton is because Clayton is a member of the Wickham family. For those of you who don't know, and I'm sure probably most of you don't, the Wickhams have been around in America since the early 1700s, and they've held a number of positions, a lot of lawyers in the family, and the Wickham in particular that Clayton was related to is a man named Williams Carter Wickham. Williams Carter Wickham was a state legislator in Virginia in the time before and right up to the Civil War. And he was a white landowner who, he and his wife, Lucy Penn Taylor Wickham, Lucy was a cousin of Robert E. Lee. And the two of them, by virtue of their families, owned 3,000 acres of land called Hickory Hill. And Williams Carter Wickham also owned 270 slaves. Often only 250, but we don't quibble with that. Among those 200 plus people in slavery was my family, the Hewletts. And Williams Carter Wickham, being a man of his time, did what a lot of slave owners did. He had children by one of his enslaved women, a woman named Bibiana, and her name was Bibiana Hewlett, and he had 6 children with her, and that makes her my great-great-grandmother and makes him my great-great-grandfather. He is also, well, he is Clayton's great-great-great-great-grandfather. And the reason the New York Times wanted to talk to Clayton and I was because they became aware of the fact that over the course of years, in 2012, I met Clayton's aunt, Lisa, because I was teaching at the Swananoa Gathering in North Carolina, and because I'd found out that we were related to the Wickhams, I happened to mention that one day to a class of people that I was teaching, and you never know. One of the people in the class came up to me afterwards and said, "You're not gonna believe this, but I know the Wickham family." And she said, "I was best friends in high school with a girl named Lisa Wickham, and I haven't talked to her in 30 years, but I'm gonna look her up. And if I look her up, are you interested in talking to her?" And I said, "Absolutely." I don't know that I meant it. Well, I mean, it's something you say, you know. I mean, people say, "I can connect you to something in your history," and you go, "Connect me." But that day, what were the odds? It was 2010, and I wasn't thinking, we had already talked about the fact that these things happened. Anyway, long story, a year went by, and that student made contact with Lisa, and Lisa told her that she really did want to talk to me. And so, in 2012, with Lisa's number, I made a phone call. Now, I will tell you, when I found out I could make the phone call, I didn't make it right away. I waited 3 weeks. You know, these things are complicated. But I decided one day, since I travel all around the country and the world talking about things like this, history, reconnections, slavery, relationships. For whom the bell tolls. So, I dialed the number. It rang twice, and I didn't know what to expect, but what I got was this. A voice on the other end said, "Hi." I said, "Hello, I'm Reggie Harris," and before I could get another word out of my mouth, the voice on the other end said, "Where have you been?" I said, excuse me? She said, where have you been? You were supposed to call me 3 weeks ago. I said, well, I'm sorry. I said, I travel a lot, and things got, and she says, I've been on your website. I know where you've been. I said, well, okay, I'm busted. And she said, well, I understand from Fran that we're cousins. And I said, yeah, that's what it is. I have a booklet. And she said, how old are you? I was expecting her to ask me to prove it, but she just said, how old are you? I said, I told her, and she said, oh, well, you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have many cousins, and the cousins that we did have, we didn't like very much. So I'm always happy to have new cousins, and by the way, I'm 2 years older than you, and I can boss you around. This is how our relationship began. And subsequently, I met her sister, and I met her brother, and we began having conversations. I went to Richmond to meet Lisa. I met Clayton, the 27-year-old. And it has become a major deal. Williams Carter Wickham had a statue. I say had because in 2020, like many of the other statues, his was pulled down too. And I will tell you that, yeah. It brought some very interesting conversations on Zoom between the Hewletts and the Wickhams. We were all on the same page. It just, you know, details. We found out that Will somehow was on the site as it came down, and we're not quite sure what he had to do with it, but at any rate, that's another story. But I went to Richmond to meet Lisa, and it was an amazing evening. We sat and we talked about not only the statue and our history of connection, but also we just talked about life, and we talked about possibility and opportunity. And that's really what the New York Times wanted to talk to us about. They wanted to talk about these conversations that we've been having since 2012, and they wanted to talk to us about what we thought about Williams Carter Wickham's statue coming down. They wanted to hear what happened with me on the day that Lisa and I actually took a trip to Hickory Hill, because she said to me when I was having dinner with her that first time, she said, you know, I'm just so happy that we've had this opportunity that we can take a step into a new present. But she said, you know, to make it complete, if you have some time tomorrow, I know you have to leave, but you're going north, and I could take you by the property. I could take you to the plantation. I know where it is. Her brother said, it's been sold out of the family. And she said, yeah, but I kind of go up there from time to time, and I know those folks are not there very much. And I said, so what is it? She says, well, we would go up and we would get off the road. It's about 15 minutes off of I-95. She says, I have to tell you, we go down a country road a couple of miles, and then you'd have to be willing to hop over a small fence. I said, okay, so we're going to get off the road, down the dirt road, around the bend, and I'm going to hop over a small fence and walk on a property that neither of us owns. I'll be doing this with a white woman that I just met in the state of Virginia. What could possibly go wrong? Over the fence we went. We walked that property for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And what we told the New York Times, and what we told eventually Don Lemon, because eventually the story ended up in Don Lemon's new book. We told them that the opportunity that we had was something that we just could not see missing. And it was true that as we walked on that property that day, from time to time, our faces, our eyes would meet, and neither of us could find words that really, really captured what was happening. And so we just kept walking. Finally, through the gardens that were now in disarray, past the building that she said was the office that all the transactions happened, up on the porch of the house. where we stood together looking in the windows. This was a building she had been to many times, but for me, it was a first. We went back to our cars, and I thanked her for bringing me. We hugged, and she went south, I went north, and then for 3 weeks, I could think of nothing else. So I picked up the phone again. And this time, she greeted me with, "I knew you were going to call me." And we talked for 2 hours about our day at Hickory Hill. Barren fields to the horizon, ghosts of autumn catch the wind, memories of those saints and sinners gather round to haunt us once again. Now we're finally here together, standing silent face to face. Secret family undercover, born of shame, saved by hope and grace. Hickory Hill, we're on hallowed ground, walking side by side, wondering what we found. Hearts break open wide across the great divide. I can see the questions in your eyes now that we are home again. They celebrate the grand illusion, and they write it up for all to see. But in that mystery of confusion, there lies a truth that might one day set us free. So now our stories come together across these fields of broken dreams, and the blood that binds us all together is indeed much thicker than it seems. Oh, Hickory Hill, we're on hallowed ground, walking side by side, wondering what we found. Hearts break open wide across the great divide. Can you see the questions in my eyes? Oh, Hickory Hill, we're on solid ground, standing side by side, wondering what we found. Hearts break open wide across the great divide. Can you hear those demons as they die, now that we are home again? I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out a warning, I'd hammer out the love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Ooh, over this land. If I had a bell, oh, I'd ring it in the morning, ring it in the evening, all over this land. I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out a warning, I'd ring out a love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Ooh, all over this land. If I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning, sing it in the evening, all over this land. I'd sing out danger, I'd sing out a warning, I'd sing out the love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Ooh, all over this land. Well, I've got a hammer, and I've got a bill, and I've got a all over this land. It's the hammer of justice, it's the bell of freedom, it's a song about the love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Well, I've got a hammer, and I've got a bell, and I've got a all over this land. It's the hammer of justice, it's the bell of freedom, it's the song about the love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Oh, that was fun. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Well, that's a song that was written by Lee Hayes and one of my dearest friends, Pete Seeger. I met Pete Seeger years and years ago. He was in Philadelphia doing a concert, and it was the first time I'd gotten on a big concert. My partner Kim and I were part of the opening acts, and Pete Seeger was the headliner, and there he was, this amazing icon who also I heard about in second grade. But there he was, and he was sitting near the side of the stage when I met him. I came around the corner and almost stepped on his banjo. Well, he'd left it on the floor, as he often did. But, I almost stepped on his banjo. I avoided it, and he looked up and saw the near catastrophe and called me over, and he said, "Who are you?" I started to say, "I'm the guy who almost stepped on your banjo." But I said, "I'm Reggie Harris," and he said, "Pete Seeger." I said, "I know who you are." Pete and his wife Toshi became great mentors over the course of years, and I got involved with Clearwater and sailed on the boat, and then over the course of years had the opportunity to enjoy both of them as friends and mentors. And I'm going to close tonight with a song that I wrote for Pete and for Toshi, as Pete died in 2014, and many were standing around his hospital bed that night singing, many of our Clearwater friends. I didn't make it to the hospital. I was traveling that night on the New Jersey Turnpike, and when the text came in that they were all gathering at the hospital, I realized that traffic was not going to allow me to get there, and so I went to a friend's house in New Jersey, and I figured if Pete lasted the night, they weren't sure that I would go into the hospital in New York City in the morning, but as things developed. He actually died before I got to my friend's house, and it was all over the news. Just stories came in. The thing that was so amazing about that night was that stories that came in from all around the world weren't of people writing to say that some icon, some famous person had died. Obviously, he was famous around the world. But the stories came in were little bits and pieces, stories about people's interactions with Pete and with Toshi, and notes that he wrote to them. Pete wrote back to everybody who wrote to him, eventually. He visited schools. He was a famous person who had absolutely no, need for fame, because what he wanted to do was get people singing, and he did that around the world. And what he taught most of us was that the song and the singing of songs was not about us, that it was about connecting people around the world and allowing ourselves to be the channel of the song. So I'm going to end with a song called High Over the Hudson. And I thank you so much for being an amazingly marvelous audience tonight. I did bring CDs. They were over in the gazebo. I brought enough probably for all of you. So don't be shy. I have more in the car. I would certainly like to thank the folks here for having me in this wonderful, marvelous, incredibly beautiful spot. Thank you for some of the best sound I've had all year. And thank you to each and every one of you. Continue to support this amazing music series and continue to support each other as well. The news came over the air tonight. Pete Seeger went sailing today. Set out on the Hudson about 9 o'clock, searching for new songs to play. Passed by Bear Mountain, making great time as the water slapped hard on the bow. At Storm King, he turned that boat into the wind, set the old Woody G on the prow. Now he's high over the Hudson, sails headed for home. High on the breeze as it cuts through the trees. Pete, you're not sailing alone. No, you're high over the Hudson. You got one hell of a view. Now your battles are won, a new journey's begun. Pete, we're singing with you of time and rivers flowing. The seasons make a song, and we who live beside her will try to sing along. Troubadour's life has its ups and its downs, that there's so much that's been said. Pete spoke out for justice year after year, a leader who actually led. He sang out for freedom, he sang out for peace, taught through the power of song. Ahead of his time in all seasons of life, he kept us all singing along. Now he's high over the Hudson, saw and set it for home. High on the breeze as it cuts through the trees. Pete, you're not sailing alone. No, you're high over the Hudson. You still got one hell of a view. Now your battles are won, a new journey's begun. Pete, we're singing with you. Odetta and Mary say, welcome, good friend. Woody and Faith both agree that you lived your passion for 94 years, and you lived it with integrity. Now we as your children and we as your friends must take up your mission of song. As Toshi yells out with a smile on her lips, hey Peter, what took you so long? And now he's high over the Hudson, sails headed for home. High on the breeze as it cuts through the trees, Pete, you're not sailing alone. No, you're high over the Hudson. You still got one hell of a few. Now your battles are won, a new journey's begun. Pete, we're singing with you, with you. And we who must join in can't stand aside no longer. Now let the songs begin. Thank you so much. This has been a delight.
What a lovely way to start a Thursday evening at Festival on the Green. Thank you, Reggie, for entertaining, educating, and inspiring us.